A full year had gone by since our divorce. Yet there were still nights when I lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering how something that once felt so unbreakable could quietly fall apart. For 7 years, Sarah and I had built a life that felt solid. Plans, laughter, a home filled with little dreams stitched together by love. But over time, things began to crack in ways neither of us could fix. Conversations turned into arguments. Smiles became rare, and eventually, all that warmth between us cooled into silence. When she finally said she wanted a divorce, I didn't fight it. Maybe I was too worn down, or maybe a small part of me believed she'd come back once she realized what we were losing. But she didn't. We signed the papers, and just like that, the life we built unraveled into something that felt both empty and inevitable. Afterward, I tried to keep myself busy. I buried my thoughts in work, spent weekends hiking, met friends for drinks, and told myself I was moving on. I deleted her number, boxed up the photos, avoided old places we used to go. Sarah had moved to another city, and our lives stopped overlapping completely. It was cleaner that way, or at least that's what I told myself. Then one rainy evening, as I was locking up the office, my phone buzzed. When I looked down and saw her name, my chest tightened. For a few seconds, I just stared at it, half convinced I was imagining things. I hadn't heard from her since the day we ended everything. "Hey!" Her voice came softly through the speaker. "It's been a while." It was strange how familiar her tone still sounded. Steady, calm, a little sad. "Yeah," I said awkwardly. "It has." There was a pause. Then she asked if we could meet for coffee. I almost said no, but something in her voice, something fragile, made me agree. Maybe I just wanted a real ending, one that didn't feel like silence. We met the next afternoon at a quiet cafe by the park. She looked the same, just a little thinner, a little older around the eyes. We made small talk, work, family, the usual polite things strangers who used to love each other say. But underneath every word was an ache, an awareness of all the things left unsaid. After a few minutes, she traced the rim of her coffee cup and said, "I've been meaning to ask you something." Her voice wavered. I nodded, unsure what to expect. She looked up, eyes searching mine. "Did you ever really love me?" It hit me like a punch. I wasn't prepared for that, not after all this time. Memories came rushing back in fragments. The sound of her laughter, our first apartment, the way she used to fall asleep on my shoulder during movies. I remembered how fiercely I had loved her even when things were falling apart. But I also remembered the exhaustion, the feeling of shouting across an emotional distance that kept growing wider. "Yes," I said finally, "more than you probably ever realized." But love wasn't enough to hold us together. Her eyes shimmered, and she gave a small nod. It looked like that answer hurt, but it was something she needed to hear. After a long silence, she confessed that she'd spent the past year wondering if she'd made a mistake. She had dated a few people, but nothing had felt real. "It's like every relationship after you feels hollow," she admitted. For a moment, I wanted to reach across the table and tell her I'd missed her too, that I still thought about her sometimes when certain songs played or when I saw her favorite kind of flowers at the market. But I knew better. Going back would only reopen wounds that had just begun to heal. "Sometimes," I said quietly, "love doesn't disappear. It just changes shape. And sometimes letting go is the only way to stop breaking each other." She smiled sadly. I guess I needed to hear that too. We sat there for another hour, talking about forgiveness, about how different we'd both become. When we finally stood to leave, she hesitated before wrapping her arms around me. It wasn't the kind of embrace that asked for anything. It was soft, final, almost peaceful. As she walked away through the drizzle, I watched her go without calling her name. For the first time, it didn't hurt in that sharp, unbearable way. It just settled. That night, I went home, opened my phone, and deleted her contact, not out of bitterness, but because it was time. I realized she hadn't called to reopen old doors. She called so we could finally close them properly. Her question had given me the closure I didn't know I'd been waiting for. I had loved her, deeply and sincerely, but that love belonged to another time. Sometimes the hardest goodbyes aren't the ones said in tears. They're the quiet ones that come long after, when you've already accepted the truth. And that night, I finally did